I am. Okay, right. What I'm going to do is read a bit of material that I've come across. I think I've got 5 viewers. I can't see who's watching, which is good news for people out there who, want to keep their anonymity. The only way I'll know who's chatting is if you use the chat box, if you've got any questions as I go. What I'm going to do is read a bit of material. And the reason is that I think the subject of sexual abuse is, it's very prevalent in our society. And we're in very early days of where the toxic shame of speaking about it is beginning to ease off. But I still feel that, not enough's done or said. And there's a lot of people living in silence because they've been forced into toxic shame and blame and such things like that. So I've got a couple of articles that I printed off earlier. And any material that I'm reading here now is all going to be below the video on YouTube afterwards. You can have a look, or you can probably see it now, but you can see it afterwards. And I think that the important thing about speaking up is that it's going to have the butterfly effect for the rest of humanity, because currently we've got 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 5 boys who go through sexual abuse. There's all types of abuse, of course, but tonight I'm talking about sexual abuse. And I'm going to be reading a little section that I read yesterday in a live that I did from Donald Kalshed, who's a union therapist. And this is the book. And it's Donald Kalshed. And you might see that beautiful picture there where you have the child and there's an angel. And there's what we would call the evil angel. So we're pulled, the psyche, when we've been through sexual abuse, the psyche really struggles between the two. And we live that inwardly, and it cannot be seen by people outside ourselves. It's like the inner world that goes on and the suffering that goes on inwardly. And a lot of people that I know, and I would say being online and working online, that every 3rd woman that I speak to has been through sexual abuse. And I know that to be a fact. Even when I'm out and about and I talk to people openly, people will say, yes, they've been sexually abused. And I think that society will change, and we're in the throes of change, but it is speaking up and having no shame. And then with our own sexual abuse that we've experienced as women or men as well, that we get to a point where we evolve the pains so that we get to have a life, because clearly we only have one life in this form, and whether there are other forms or whether we come back, we don't know, depending on what we believe spiritually or on the soul. But I'll read a few things and then I'll go from there. I'll look to see if there's any messages that come up. So I'm reading an article here, and it's childhood physical and sexual abuse in patients with anxiety disorders and in a community, and it's a sample. And it says, it investigated whether histories of childhood physical, sorry, my microphone's a bit away from me, got it here. So start again. He says here, whoever wrote this, they said, investigated whether histories of childhood physical or sexual abuse were reported more frequently in clinical examples. A sample of 125 patients aged between 18 and 64 years old with anxiety disorders, panic disorder, or without agoraphobia, social phobia, or obsessive compulsive disorder, than in a matched community comparison sample of 125 18 to 61-year-olds, childhood physical abuse was higher among both men and women with anxiety disorders than among comparison. Childhood sexual abuse was higher among women with anxiety disorders than among comparison women, and was higher among women with panic disorders than among women with other anxiety disorders. I hope this makes sense. Results confirm the association between anxiety disorders and that of physical and sexual abuse. So it means clearly that people who've been through sexual abuse or abuse as a child have higher anxiety disorders. So then what happens is that people, will attend their doctors in their adult years, later years, after years of disassociating. However, we're going to disassociate because disassociation does come from being abused as a child, but we have a split and arrested development. So that means that we will do various things, that we will possibly, use alcohol, drugs, food, undereating, overeating, and other forms of disassociation in order to feel okay within ourselves. And that can be OCD tendencies as well. So it's very complex when a child is abused, because when a baby is born and it's right brain, and I was reading this yesterday in the book that I just showed, Donald Cowshed, the Union therapist, was speaking about how a baby is all right brain. So all of the wanting, it's all right brain. And then when we get to an older version of, maybe we start adding up and things like that, and around 8 years old, he doesn't say this, but I'm just imagining this to be the case, that we begin to go into left brain, and that becomes more active in us, but it's a process. So if we're abused very young, then that right brain, all of the implicit memories, the conditioning is stuck in the right brain, and we zone out. So I'm going to go on reading this a little bit more, and then a little bit from this book. So this is another article that's also below the link, because I got this online today. It says, this is abstract objective. It says, to assess the potential role of childhood and adulthood physical and sexual abuse and complaints of chronic in accounting for psychiatric symptomatology in adult women. So I'm aware men get abused as well, but I'm just reading this article. It says, we assessed sexual abuse, physical abuse, depression, anxiety, and somatization in 64 women with chronic pelvic pain, 42 women with chronic headache, and 46 women without chronic pain complaints. Using multiple regression analysis, we tested a model comprising of the chronic pain, childhood sexual abuse and physical abuse, and adulthood sexual abuse and physical abuse variables in the prediction of depression, anxiety, and somatization. Results: this model significantly predicted all three outcomes. However, childhood sexual abuse was not significant in the prediction of any of the outcome variables, whereas childhood physical abuse was significant in the prediction of all three. So what we're really looking at is the pain that is caused, and then in our adult life, we're living in pain. So there's this pain that we're living through every day of our lives that doesn't quite go away. And it's this will make us want to disassociate, and it can lead into tragic things, and it can also lead into codependency, but it can also lead into not living our lives fully. Yesterday, when I read this book that I'm here, there was one section that I read that I found really really spelt it out for me. And I remember this myself, and it's a little bit graphic what I'm about to read, but hopefully it doesn't trigger anybody. Graphic in the sense of the reality of what sexual abuse is for children. But I don't think it's scary. So, you can listen or not, you can make a choice there. He's talking about what it does to people. And he says, in addition to flooding the brain with stress hormones and putting its integrative activity out of commission, disassociation, DIS, he says for short, operates by splitting the child's attention at moments of overwhelming effect, so that the child's whole experience is fragmented and compartmentalized. For example, the child being sexually violated by a family member may concentrate so strongly on a focal image in the visual field. So what he's saying is that when a child is sexually abused, they will not remain in their body. They will stare at something, they'll go out of body. And that is a form of disassociation to protect themselves from the pain and the unpleasantness of what's going on. He then says that compartmentalized, for example, the child being sexually violated by a family member may concentrate so strongly on a focal image in the visual field, perhaps a pattern on the wallpaper, that a state of auto-hypnosis, trance, is generated. Bodily pain is no longer in focus, but the pattern is. The sensation and or the meaning of the violation falls into the background, into implicit memory. Thus, in trauma, the fragments of experience are laid down in implicit memory only, remaining undifferentiated. They also occur archaic and typical archetypal enhancements. They are amplified by the collective patterns that organize the deep layer of the psyche, and hence they become all the more powerful, operating totally out of awareness. So this means that all of this stuff is poured into our adult life. And I'm going to share a few things now. I'm going to go to because this is important, because what I want to get across here is that at some point we need to stop suffering the sexual abuse, but that is no easy task. Unless it's spoken about, we keep reliving it. So the first thing is that we do need to go. Actually, I've got my list here before I show you what I'm going to show you on my screen. We need to basically start removing things that are causing any problems. So the first thing I did, not the first thing, but one of the major things I did was that I got rid of alcohol, because that was that was one of the biggest ways that I was disassociating, was by smoking cigarettes and drinking alcohol. So when you begin to get rid of the things that you're disassociating with, and I can understand why people do use alcohol and drugs and things when they have been abused, because the memories are so painful. So if you've got an alcohol issue and you've been through sexual abuse, do try and get some help around that area. And I would say, this is my view, that when I stopped drinking, I did go to AA for 3 months, and it was okay for 12 weeks. But beyond that, I don't think it would have worked for me personally, because it came to light that what I had was CPTSD. Now, CPTSD is not, like PTSD, but CPTSD is not a disorder. It basically is a reaction to events from your past. So it's a way of coping and operating, and it's deep in the psyche. So there are reactions that we have: the fight, flight, freeze, fawn response. And those reactions are explained in this book, which is Pete Walker's book. And what you can do is that below this video, you can get this book for free on USA, Amazon, on Audio or Audible, and you can get it free on Kindle UK. So you go to Amazon, either site, and again, the links are below. But when you get this book is going to be able to help you to understand the fight, flight, freeze, fawn response, which are forms of disassociation. And then I would say, if you're drinking, work on the alcohol and get rid of it, because, it's poison. It's fine if people can control it, and, if people don't do it in huge amounts, but anybody that's using to get rid of pain, alcohol is not meant to get rid of the pain, but, it's not meant to be used for that. It's meant to be used for fun and joy. But for me, alcohol just doesn't work. It didn't work in my life. The other thing is that for anybody looking in turning to spirituality to heal childhood trauma or sexual abuse, you're going to have a difficult time, because a lot of the terminology in spirituality is to surrender, release, let it go. In religious terms, it would be to honor thy mother and father. If you've been through sexual abuse and it's been through your parents, then that's going to be bypassing the real issues and the real problems. And I would strongly recommend that you get a therapist. In the UK, I've managed to get, via my doctor, I managed to get 18 months of trauma psychotherapy, which has been really, really beneficial to me. So if you're in the USA, I don't think that you get that handed out to you, but some way, somehow, there's got to be help out there for you to process. With regard to forgiveness, I would say that I was harassed by people in the spiritual community. Not harassed, maybe the wrong word, but it felt like it at the time, that I had to forgive my parents. I think for me, and I understand that my experiences was the worst of the worst in many ways. And what happens with forgiveness, when we fully process something, we realize there is nothing to forgive. And I'll give you a simple example. If somebody stole, like £100 from you, or you lent somebody $100, for instance, and it really, really riled you, and you kept wanting to forgive them, and then one day, however long it takes, you wake up and you think, oh, I don't care about that anymore. That is because you then fully processed the annoyance that this person took your money or didn't give it back to you or whatever. This is what happens with people that have been through abuse. I'm not saying one day you wake up and it doesn't matter anymore, but as we process and we talk about it, we begin to evolve where we've come from. And the only way we are going to evolve it is by talking about it and having therapy and psychoeducation. So I've said Pete Walker's book, Anxiety and Panic Attacks. I'm going to tell you what I did for myself. Because when I stopped drinking, I started going into deep anxiety and panic attacks. So I did train in and become a faster EFT practitioner. And the main way that helped me was that if I go into anxiety, I would tap on my collarbone. And what that's doing is bringing you back into the parasympathetic mode and bringing you out of fight, flight and calming you down. And it's this funny thing, because if you take a little baby and they're crying and you want to soothe them and you take them and you pat on their back, it seems like to be quite a similar effect, but clearly not the same. But it's just helping you to breathe and to be at ease. What else do I have? I have Pete Walker's book. I've got a few slides I'm going to show you. So what we want to do with the sexual abuse that anybody has suffered is that we want to get to a point where we're able to begin to find remedies to solve the problem that we experienced, because this is our life and it is magnificent. And if we have been through sexual abuse, it's not happening anymore. And it's unlikely that that's going to happen again as an adult. You're not going to go through the same childhood experience. There's going to be a lot of hurt and a lot of pain, particularly if it's at the hands of parents, because if it was a mother or a father that was involved in it, it means that you've been seriously violated on matters of trust. And it means that you've been through abandonment and loss and betrayal. And that is a tragic thing for a child to experience. And we need to, really honor ourselves and have a lot of love for ourselves and realize that that was not on, and that we don't have to forgive if we don't want to. We don't have to put that one on us, because I find that that's the first thing a lot of people want to do. They say, I have to forgive, I have to forgive. We don't have to do anything. We have to heal, and we have to do it in a way which is correct and right for us. So if you have friends that are harassing you in spiritual groups, telling you that you have to forgive your violators when they've never even experienced any sort of abuse, you've got to know that these people don't know. They don't probably mean harm, but they don't know what they're talking about. So you need to be in groups on social media that specialize in helping people who understand, so that when you write about it, they're not going to say, oh, you need to forgive them because they're your parents, because it's a load of bull, in my opinion. Maybe that's something that people have on their agenda, but, each to their own. So now I'm going to look at a web page that's going to help you with any codependency and understand your attachment style. So what I've got to do somehow is share my screen, which shouldn't be too difficult. But saying that, I've got to find out where I am on my screen first. So give me a minute here. I'm going to go to here and back to meeting. Okay, what I'm going to do is see if I can share my screen, because this is really going to help you. And share, and let's see. Right, not there. This is going to take me 1 minute to find. So I hope you can still see me. I think you can. So I have to go into my bookmarks bar and find it, because I saved it today, and it's going to be exit. Let me see. Bookmarks. Where are we? Okay, got it. I've got a lot on my desktop. I've got a lot of tabs open at the moment. So attachment style disorder. Okay. Right. So now what I'm going to do is share, hopefully, this. Okay. Right. Let's see if this comes up. So what I've got here is a website that I found that a good friend of mine forwarded to me. And what you can do is find out your attachment style, and you'll be able to see from this what you how you're interacting in relationships with people, which is really important. You'll be able to tick little boxes here. And let's see, you've got questions and then you have answers, and then this will help you evolve, any problems that you've got in your relationship. So it says, for instance, when I give more than I get, I often become resentful or harbor a grudge. So you can say rarely, never, sometimes, usually, or often. So I would say that do look at this link below, and this is going to help you solve some of your relationship stuff. And then I'm going to stop share there. And then I'm going to come back to something else that I want to share. And it's this. So here goes. This is something I found that is really useful, that in society we can also think about, that with regards to keeping secrets and, protecting people that have, abused you, that a lie would have no sense unless the truth were felt as dangerous. And that was said by Alfred Adler. So where we've got, where we're told that it's better not to speak up and say nothing, we've got to see that, keeping silent is really helping nobody. And it's important that we get to a point where we do evolve and we do, know that speaking up is not going to hurt anybody, that it's actually going to help all of the children that are currently going through sexual abuse and are suffering. So that's one saying there. And then I've got another one here that's helpful. Intention is creation and doubt is the eraser. So don't doubt yourself in your speaking up. Know that you can, and that you're allowed to speak up, and that you don't have to have any shame in speaking up. And then another one I had was wisdom. This is the beautiful thing about that comes through people that have been through absolute hardship, that eventually it turns into wisdom, and then we become a light for the rest of the world. So it's important that you realize that you do, have this power. I don't know if I'm showing it properly, actually. Let me see. Go back here. Back to meeting. Okay. Okay, stop share and then share. There you go. Wisdom. This is what I wanted to show. I'm all over the place tonight. But anyway, let's go back. So these were just what I was just showing. A lie would have no sense unless the truth were felt as dangerous. And then you've got here, intention is creation and doubt is the eraser. And then wisdom. So speaking up and feeling that you can, and that knowing that you're safe to do so will bring, it brings wisdom to others as well that need the help to evolve what they've been through. And that's it. I think I'm going to leave it there. I think I've said nobody's in the chat, but hopefully this is useful to somebody, what I've pointed out tonight. And I thank you. I'm going to stop share. And I thank you for listening. And I'm going to be back tomorrow with a bit more information that's probably helpful to somebody out there. Okay, that's it. I'm ending now. Catch you later.